/25 is the correct answer.
Oh, that's what I was going to say.
Mr. Hedeman, I am sorry to say, but you have negative 600 points, sir. Thank you very much for playing, but get out of here.
You're smarter than me.
Yeah, well, you're still winning.
The current scores, Mr. Pokrandt is leading the herd with a score of 1,700 points. Mr. Abdy is still teetering on the edge at negative 500. And Mr. Errico at a modest 300 points.
Can he wager negative?
Mr. Pokrandt, once again, your decision.
Numbers for 300.
That's what I thought.
Numbers for 300, and I'm not going to click
I'm
on
going to
it.
raise my hand.
I can get wrong.
Yeah, you're probably.
What is the decimal number represented by the hexadecimal AF? Mr. Errico.
1-0-1-0-1-1-1-1.
I'm sorry, but that is not the correct answer.
Wait, what did you say?
Decimal number.
Oh! I thought you said binary!
You're at 0 points.
You know what?
Thank you for making my note.
I am upset.
Thanks.
I can tell.
I no longer feel stupid.
Mr. Abdy, Mr. Pokrandt, would you like to answer this question?
I forget how X works.
This is all yours. You got it.
I know what A and F are. I just don't remember how they work together. They like add them or what or I don't even know.
I have another answer, which is the correct answer.
Oh, Nathan's got it.
Mr. Errico, you did have your hand up before Mr. Pokrandt raised his hand. I will allow you a second answer.
I really don't know if it's right or not. 176.
That is not correct. I'm sorry.
175.
175 is the correct answer.
I will slap you in the face with a spoon.
I'm sorry.
Alright. That was fun though because
I hate X.
computer science.
Math.
Now I have to go into the hard stuff. Networking for 300.
Networking for 300 points.
I'm gonna lose.
Here's your question. What does the IEEE 802.15 standard define? Mr. Errico?
What is Ethernet?
That is not correct.
Is he out yet?
No, I'm a -3.
Oh,
And
Oh, I
it's
remember now.
802.15.
15.
Mr. Errico, would you like to modify your answer?
Because I'm gonna get it wrong again.
It can't hurt.
I think
What
I
is
know what it is.
Bluetooth?
What is Bluetooth? That is the correct answer.
Is Ethernet 13?
3.
I knew it had an odd number.
There were a lot of odd numbers.
All right, we have programming and hardware that have been completely untouched. It is Mr. Errico's turn to choose category and value.
How many points do I have?
Negative 300.
Cool. Let's go hardware for 100.
Hardware for $100 points. Who knows what it is? What is the current fastest expansion bus? Mr. Abdy.
PCIe by 16.
I will take it. PCI Express is the answer that I was looking for. By 16 being more specific is correct. I will remind the contestants when you raise the hand, I expect you to have an answer, not just, Yeah.
It was an answer.
Took a little while to get there. All right. Mr. Abdy
My 30s.
moving.
When are they going to make
moving
PCIe
away.
32?
They're not.
They will.
They will probably not do that.
Dang it.
They've just been increasing the individual lane bandwidth.
I'm going for random for 100.
Random for 100. Are you guys ready for this question? What is Mr. Elliott's favorite color?
Blue.
He didn't raise his hand first?
I did.
Mr. Abdy did raise his hand first. However, I didn't call on him before he answered. Mr. Abdy, your answer?
Blue.
There we go. All right.
Okay, now I can answer 200 points without.
Security.
What is we're gonna do
What is
You don't have to choose it in the form of a question either.
we wanna do hardware or random?
Hardware is fun.
What about
too hard.
programming?
No,
It's untouched.
no.
Get out of here.
Hardware
Do
for
it.
200.
Do it.
Hardware for 200.
Hardware 200? Alright.
How many cores does an i7-8700 have? Mr. Errico.
You're so.
There's a I7.
6.
6 cores is the correct
I know, like,
answer.
I
Physical
looked it
cores or
up
logical
last
cores?
week.
Logical or physical?
Threads still count as
Physical.
half of a core.
How many logical cores though, Jersey?
I don't know.
Well,
They're
you
hypothetically than 12.
Alrighty, Mr. Errico.
Hardware for 3, please.
Hardware for 300 points.
I don't want that. I want 3.
I like this question.
Blue.
Minus 200.
Downloadmorem.com.
Oh.
Yeah.
Minus 10 points. What was the first CPU to utilize triple channel memory?
You do realize we talk about triple channel for like 5 minutes in class.
Those are some of the most important 5 minutes of your life.
Who knows? I don't even.
I know.
Well, then why aren't you up here?
Because the other questions were too hard.
You shouldn't have answered it.
If Brett gets it, I will add the points to his score and put him back on the panel. Brett,
Intel.
that is the first part of the answer.
Is
The Intel what?
It's the Intel CentOS, obviously.
I'll give you an additional hint. This processor came out at the end of 2008, beginning of 2009.
We know that. Intel Core 2 Duo.
It is not the Intel Core 2 Duo.
That was actually around that time.
That was around that time. The end of the Core 2 Duo, in fact, was right around that
It's
time.
probably like the first i3 or something.
What if we give like a generation, would that count?
Why don't you raise your hand and guess?
Because I don't want to lose the points.
Yeah, I don't want to lose the game. I just lost the
You
game.
see, that's what happens when...
You should guess. You don't have any of the
The i7
The
9.
Intel
know
Core
that?
i7 920. Anybody that took my hardware class would know
I was
that.
gonna say that.
I did
We're
not
not
update
as
on my,
excited
on
as
my
you.
notes.
Oh, boy.
I didn't see that.
Nobody
Yeah.
saw that.
Dang it.
So what? Hardware
Alrighty.
for 400.
Hardware for 400.
So no one lost points on that.
No one lost points. Nobody
smarter
gained
now.
points. What bus allows storage devices to take advantage of PCI Express lanes?
Bus? Oh.
Wait.
Oh my gosh.
Tri-state travel.
It is not Greyhound.
I forget the name.
I should know this.
I'm slightly disappointed at the moment.
I know the bridge. I don't know the bus. Is that the name of the bus? Am I getting it right? No, I'm not going to say it.
400 points are on the line. What bus allows storage devices to take advantage of PCI Express lanes?
Oh! Is it the external data
Mr.
bus?
Abdy? That is not the
No!
correct answer. I am sorry.
No. Does that mean
I'm out.
No, you're not.
I'm out.
No,
I have a
you're-
500.
No, you were up a little bit.
No, I wasn't. It's still 400. I was
Oh,
at
yeah.
negative 300.
Now all I have to do is make Nathan answer all the wrong questions.
Mr. Pokrandt, Mr. Errico, do you have an answer?
because
Is he actually?
I can't just keep dodging all the hard questions by not answering.
Yeah, you might as well go answer, buddy. Is
Storage bus?
that what it is?
That is the question.
Exactly.
What is the answer?
Storage devices. That's.
Are there two characters in the answer?
There are 2 and a punctuation mark.
I know what it is.
Mr. Brett Hedeman, for the chance to get back in,
M.2.
that is correct.
That's a bus?
That
it's a
is in
port.
fact a bus.
Just remove his chair.
Welcome back, Hedeman.
Mr. Hedeman comes back in at a score of negative 200 points.
I don't feel stupid now, and I haven't even taken his hardware class.
I thought M2 was the drive.
The M2 is the port.
M2 is the port that the drive goes in. We call it an M.2 drive because it goes in an M.2
A
port.
senior's chair.
Ooh, smack talk.
Just kidding.
Cool.
All right, Mr. Hedeman.
You said we could smack and talk, right?
Brett Hedeman.
I'll do programming for 500.
Programming
What is an if-then
500.
What is wrong with you? When it's 30
If it's language specific, I'm not getting any of
What
them.
is object-oriented programming?
This question is, name this IDE.
I don't know what that stands for.
Mr. Hedeman, do you really want to answer this question?
Is the
I'm gonna lose over
IDE the
here.
type of language or the program that it's using?
I cannot answer that question, I'm sorry.
Okay.
Python?
I got nothing to lose.
Mr. Abdy, for the chance to make it back in,
I got nothing to lose, so I'm gonna say NetBeans.
that is not correct.
Every single
Square.
I know 3 things it's not, so I don't know what it is, though.
This question was specifically designed for Dan Rao, who is not here.
Okay, well then that shouldn't count against us then.
Maybe. I thought you might have, but you may not have seen that yet.
No, this one's pretty.
Basic in Python. I've not seen it probably.
Python's a language, not an ID.
Duh, Nathan. Just kidding.
You can never answer it wrong. It doesn't mean.
Any guesses? No guesses? All right, this is an IDE called brackets.io.
Well, that would make
Development.
sense because it's got brackets.
I've heard of that actually.
I knew it wasn't cute.
And if I hadn't cropped off that side, it says brackets.io right there. All right.
It also says what.
Basically, you want to give Dan Rao a free 500 points.
Dan Rao now has 500 points.
Of course. He might win. Like, he might actually win.
All right, Mr. Hedeman, still yours.
Let's do random for 500.
Random
Is it
for
daily double?
500. What computer, owned by the Computer Studies Department, has the largest amount of RAM? Mr. Hedeman?
The ones in the lab?
That is not correct. I am sorry.
He said computer.
That was
not
for
computer.
500.
I'm just going for it. I have no
I'm going for it.
There's
Mr.
lots
Errico?
that are-
What is Jupiter?
Jupiter is the correct answer.
I shouldn't have answered that. Who is Jupiter?
Who is
How do you not share this?
Jupiter is one of our servers that has 144 gigabytes of RAM.
Did I say who or what? Because who is
I didn't think
correct.
about.
You said, what is Jupiter?
Hey,
Who? I'm sorry,
Go to the
Jupiter.
series
I wasn't
here.
wrong.
When you
Yeah,
rise
I
up
was
in the
wrong.
robot uprising.
It's not in the lab.
Dang it.
It's connected to the
really
lab, but
hoping
it's
that-
not in the lab. However, Mr. Brett Hedeman, you have
logically
once
lab.
again fallen below the
Jupiter's
threshold of
connected to-
negative
No, I'm
500
at
points.
500. I am at 500.
You are at negative 700 because
How?
you came back in at negative 200.
Yeet. I thought I was coming in at 0.
Yo, you already lost twice.
I'm sorry, you came in at negative 200.
The show is just.
Security, if we could get that man out of here, at least
Okay, so
Josh, you're gonna break all your cameras.
keep him around. He might be able to get back in. And let's not break the cameras, they're
Daniel
expensive.
Errico, I probably will get back in.